Hi, folks, and welcome to Peace Unplugged. I've got a guest today, Glen Ridgeway. We're going to talk about workplace well-being. Glen, welcome.
Morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Pretty good today. So, talking about workplace well-being, tell me a little bit about how you got into it and what your perspective is.
Well, I used to be a chartered engineer and a health and safety manager. My switch towards mental health and well-being started in 2008 with my first breakdown. So, I loved the job I was doing, team leader, office in Exeter, the rivers and coastal stuff, team of 6 people, all the responsibilities that you would have with managing people, delivering projects, winning work, all that sort of stuff. And I loved it. And I was one of those annoying people that sing like, I enjoy my Mondays as much as my Saturdays, always have, yeah, for the most part, shall we say. I'm one of the annoying people that sings when they arrive at work. Oh, what a wonderful morning. Mostly because I felt that way, but partly because it really used to irritate people. So, and sometime in 2008, I stopped singing, and I don't know when. And if I'd realised that, I would have probably seen that as the first signal, because I thought that stress and long hours was the norm. I was boss, so working. I should say, rarely worked a Saturday. Saturdays are normally my day off, but I wouldn't mind working on a Sunday morning. So I would work late, I would have sleepless nights, I would work Sunday mornings, which was fine because the family were there, they were doing their things around me. The fact I wasn't paying attention to them didn't matter to me. I was in the room, if you like. And I didn't realise that I was struggling. And it wasn't until October 2008, I was having a particularly difficult project and it went pear-shaped. And I broke down in the middle of the office. Something happened, something just triggered, and I broke down in the middle of the office. And a colleague of mine took me to one side. We went for a walk. The office was by the river. We went for a walk down the river, and I got my head back in the game enough to finish the day. Got home, or on the way home, I'm driving home, stopped at traffic lights, and that somebody cut me up. Now, I'm reasonably, how should we say, respectful driver. I do occasionally swear at people. Yeah, I like to think. But it felt like ages, but probably no more than 30, 40 seconds. I lost it and I tried to run that bloke off the road. Tried to accelerate past him, cut in front of him, do all sorts. And about halfway down the dual carriageway, it's not a parking place, but it's a place you could stop. I realised what I was doing. I pulled over. I calmed down. Got home, didn't say anything to my wife, Nancy. The following morning, I couldn't get out of bed. And my wife freaked. Yeah, as you can imagine. I was in bits. I could not get out of bed. I was in tears. And I physically and emotionally couldn't get out of bed. Fortunately, we were able to get a doctor's appointment that same day. That's how long ago it was when you think about it. She instantly said, "You've got depression. You're going to need to take 3 months off work." And I went, "I can't do that. I'm the boss. The world will fall apart without me." So I agreed to be signed off for 2 weeks. I phoned up work, and the first thing they said was, "Don't worry about it. Sort yourself out. We've got you. Yeah, we'll sort it out when you manage to get back to work," which I heard as, "We don't need you. You're useless anyway." Yeah, that's where my head was. Yeah, they were being supportive. My head wasn't there. Because that wasn't the sort of conversations we were having at the time. 2008, well-being and sort of supportive conversations just weren't there. Yeah, nobody understood. It wasn't part of the conversation. Anyway, I was off for 2 weeks, signed off for another 2 weeks. Eventually, I was off full-time for 3 months. So she got it right. I then got back to work part-time for another 3 months. I'd say it was another year after that before I would say I was functioning 100%. And then it was about 6 months after that I had my second.
Right.
Now, that was the start of my journey into workplace wellbeing. It started as when I got back to work, I started having these conversations. This is my story. Because in 2008, it just wasn't on anybody's agenda. So this is my story. You really don't want to be like me. And the first thing I realized as I was doing these things is I was never the only one in the room, either having a breakdown, struggling, or whatever. A lot of people in the room were either struggling or knew somebody who'd had a breakdown or whatever. There was a lot of it about. And that, I think, was the trigger for me to get involved in workplace wellbeing. So from 2008, it started with mental health. So I started 2009, moved over to health and safety. I had a conversation with somebody up in Scotland, and because she was fairly senior, but she was fairly open about her postnatal depression. And we said, okay, let's try and do something. And we were American owned. So she went across to America and said, can we talk about mental health? And they went, no.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
no.
surprising.
This is 2009 at this stage. So she came back and we had a conversation. She said, carry on doing what you're doing, but keep it on the down low. Yeah. So we had an internal Facebook or internal, communications thing. So I was posting on there, etc. Anyway, my involvement grew. I still managed to do stuff and sort of get involved. In 2015, we got a new CEO. The same woman went across and said to Steve, we need to talk about mental health. And his response was, what do you need from me to make this happen?
Probably somebody who maybe experienced it before or witnessed it before.
Marketing his son. Yeah, it was helping. He was supporting his son through. So she came back and said, okay, go. We need a strategy. We need training. We need people. We need, just go do, Glenn. And that was the start of my, if you like, getting involved on a day-to-day basis with mental health. And then that grew into wellbeing. So I did mental health first aid, realized that because it's an international company, 70,000 people around the world, mental health first aid was not the tool for us. So I went away, designed a whole system. We created a network across the globe of 1,200 mental health positive mental health champions, because that was the message. How do we create positive mental health within the organization? And that grew really. 18, couple of changes in the organization. They sold up part of the business. I went with what was sold off because I got all sorts of promises saying, oh, we love what you've done over there. Come and do it over here. I went over there and they didn't they didn't want to hear what I was saying. So they paid me a lot of money and now I'm self-employed.
Right.
That was all around mental health. It wasn't until I became self-employed that I actually started to think about well-being. Workplace well-being is more than just mental health. And that's where we developed into looking at all the other things around emotional health, physical health, all the other stuff. And that's been my journey since 2018.
Well, that's quite a story, Glenn. So it's fascinating how even to this day, there are still people that, in organisations that are reluctant to get involved or to have that agenda about health and well-being in the workplace. And as you said, it's not just about mental health; it's about physical health as well. The two are linked. It's also about the amount of time we spend at work, and about the amount of pressure that we have, and also I think there's I've done a few podcasts on about responsibility and how much responsibility we take, and learning to say no. So we don't overdo it.
To say no, not just learning to say no, but knowing that you are able to say no is as important as I can say no, but if the person who's hearing that no doesn't want to hear the no, that's a problem.
Yeah, it causes conflict. It causes conflict.
Saying no is an option.
It causes conflict, doesn't it? When you get somebody sort of, oh, what do you mean you don't want to do? I had my experience was my first experience of that sort of breakdown was when I was working in the motor trade as an administrator, and I was a bit ambitious and I wanted to get on, and I was saying yes to everything, working like yourself, working longer and longer and longer hours, until we got to the point, there's a breaking point, we start making mistakes. And I couldn't understand why I was making these mistakes. The harder I tried not to make mistakes, the more I made.
Yeah. And pride comes into that because, again, I saw myself as being just get it done. Yeah. And when
Yeah.
I made the mistakes, similar to you, my pride was being battered all the time. I should imagine it's similar to yourself, really.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of that, and we've grown up in that. We're probably of a sort of an age where, growing up, it's the kind of the alpha male attitude. Come on, just get on with it.
Yeah.
And I just called it workplace stress at the time. I didn't realise that it was quite a serious mental health issue going on, and
Yeah.
there's all sorts of other elements around neurodiversity that I've kind of recognised in myself, and also recognised with other people, and how sometimes that neurodiversity caused some conflict with myself and my work colleagues. It's interesting you saying about coming to work in the morning and singing and being really happy and telling jokes, and sometimes that irritates people.
Oh, yeah. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, yeah, but also, I found actually that it would, it became a conflict in the workplace for me. People didn't like it, and I'm thinking, well, come on, cheer up, folks. Come on, let's have a. I'm one of those people that I could sit in a meeting, um, and my head is spinning with puns the whole way through the meeting. I'm always wanting to come out with a sharp, a
Yeah.
sharp answer for something, and bite my tongue and shut up. Yeah, so it's really fascinating. So you were showing me earlier, you've got a book there,
Yeah. Published 3 weeks ago now, 2 and a bit weeks ago now.
Wellbeing Advantage.
The Wellbeing Advantage, How Caring for Your People Can Power Your Business. That's what it's called. Available on Amazon. Not all good bookshops just yet, but definitely on Amazon at the moment. And yeah, because one of the things I realized as I was becoming self-employed and feeling my way in terms of winning business and looking at other stuff, the world has moved on from when I had my first breakdown, which was, what do we do when somebody's fallen over? How do we help them? To how do we support them when they're not feeling well? To the health and safety approach of risk management. Yeah. What are the risks to mental health and well-being? And that's where I think the industry is mostly at the moment is it's the health and like I say, it's the health and safety rules and regulations. We know how to do it. We've been doing it since 1974. Assess risks and to minimize, mitigate, and manage those risks. Because we ain't going to eliminate mental health risks and well-being risks. So what I realized since 2008 is actually a different way of looking at things. It's flipping that coin over and saying, well, instead of worrying about well-being and seeing it as a problem, let's look at it as an advantage. Simply because if your people are thriving, your people are in a good place and they're coming to work being the best they can be on any given day, whatever that looks like on any given day. It'll be different from day to day, but whatever that looks like on any given day, your company is going to look to do well.
Yeah.
So let's do a people first approach. Rather than go, we need our people to be more productive. Let's treat them better. Actually go, our people are our priority and their well-being is our priority. And that is our aim. And as a consequence of that, our business will do better. So it's putting well-being at the right place, which is the primary aim. And that's that's the main thing I've learned across, since 2008, the last 8 years.
So are you going out to companies and organisations actually promoting this? Is it?
Yes, that's what I do. And it's
Right.
not an easy conversation. It's not an easy conversation because people are so used to doing the health and safety risk management stuff. And there's the ISO 45003, I think it is, which is managing psychosocial risks and all that sort of stuff. There's a whole process there that people are comfortable with. Moving beyond that is uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable conversation and you need a client that gets it.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky to work with some really good clients who do actually get that side of things. So
A kind of I one of the things that I kind of researched and looked into is that when you think about hidden costs, so when somebody's being trained or when they start a new job, there's all the training involved. It's the cost of first and foremost is the cost of advertising and recruiting somebody, finding the right person, then training that person up, and hoping that that person sits nicely, that the values are met, meet each other, and then they fit into the team. And then once you've got that person there, is retaining that person.
Yeah.
Now, the way I see it, and it's what I've witnessed in all the different workplaces I had, is the moment people start to feel uncomfortable, go, oh, actually, I want to move sideways. I want to go somewhere else because I don't like working here anymore for whatever reason. Then all that investment in that person is pretty much been wasted. And then it costs another fortune to then go and re-advertise, re-recruit, retrain. So you get high turnover of staff.
Yeah.
That results in low performance, a low quality of work. And I think this is what I think is endemic, what happens in workplaces. And that's why I'm very interested in what you're doing, because I think if organizations take on what you're promoting in this workplace well-being, they're more likely to retain their staff. They're more likely to get loyalty. They're more likely to get high productivity.
Yeah.
Than otherwise. I mean, people are always going to leave. It's not a perfect answer. People are always going to want to move on. But if we can reduce the amount of that happening in an organization, it will save goodness knows how much money.
Yeah. Well, you need a degree of churn. You need to introduce new blood into the organization. Now, you can do that by expanding and growing, or you can do it through churn. I don't have any particular reference for this field. I think it's something that came from a conversation with one of my bosses in Jacob. An 8% churn rate is a healthy churn rate for an organization. Brings in new blood, so you want that. Anything higher than that, exactly what you're saying, is a waste. That investment is a wasted investment. But what I'm saying is that if you treat your people well and create an environment where they can thrive emotionally, mentally, physically, socially, spiritually, and I'll talk about spiritually in a minute, then that investment is going to pay much better dividends. So not only are you investing in that, what you get out at the end of it is going to be so much more valuable if you treat the people well. What I mean by spirituality, I mean, some people get it from, their church, their religion, whatever there is. But to me, it's about a sense of belonging. It's about being part of something that's bigger than us, which might be family, it might be it might be your community, it might be your volunteer group, it might be your religion, etc., etc. So when I say spiritual well-being, that's what I mean. That's sort of broader text.
I 100% agree with that. That's exactly how I see it.
Yeah. So that's where the book came. That was sort of the genesis of the book, was what do we, if we think of well-being in 5 things, those 5 pillars, what is it that we need to do as an organization that could create that environment? So we did lots of research and lots of studies and all that sort of stuff, because there's loads of really good stuff in Canada and Australia, even in Chile, strange enough. Chile, every organization over 10,000 people has to give an annual report to the government on what they're doing for the well-being on the sort of mental health of their people.
Right.
Yeah. I found that out when I was in Chile launching the program for my previous employer. But anyway, so there's a lot of good stuff out there. And we looked at that and we thought, well, what is it that if you do it well, enhances well-being, but if you do it poorly, is a risk to well-being? So things like work-life mix. And I call it mix, not balance, because everybody's balance is different. So it's getting the right mix for individuals. If you get that right, then that enhances people's well-being. If you get it wrong, then there's a risk, i.e. you're working extra hours, you're working on Sunday, all that. You get that wrong, there's that risk to well-being. So we picked these 15 items. And they are, if you like, 3, I don't remember the word I use now, zones. So the first zone is those things that immediately impact on the individual. So that would be career development, autonomy and control. How much control do we have over the work that we do? Work-life mix. Yeah, that's the stuff that has a direct impact. Then there's the team factors. They're the people you work with. So there might be a direct team, but might be also people in the office. So that's where some of the mental health stuff comes in. Yeah. What support mechanisms are in place for you if you are struggling? Workload management. Yeah. How do we manage workload effectively? And then on the outside is the organizational enablers. So these are the things that have to be in place in the organization. So people-centered leadership, EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Those are the sorts of things that need to be in place. And we built, if you like, a model. Purely coincidentally, there were 15 items on the model. We actually built the model first, and then we found out there were 15 different sections to an orchestra. So it automatically became called the orchestra pit. So that's our model, the orchestra pit model, and that's what the book is. It's a chapter for each of those 15 items on why it's important, how to be better at it, and what it might look like if you're doing it well.
That's really. I got before I retired. I did get involved in EDI or DEI, whatever they call it these days. Myself, I became a champion. I did that for a specific reason, actually, because one of the things I was really championing on that side of things is that I'd always experienced a little bit of, as I said, conflict with people. That sometimes there can be a toxic atmosphere in workplaces, and I've seen it happen, and it's trying to address that and stop people being what's basically bullying going on.
Yeah.
And I tried to address that. I as part of the DEI, but they didn't want to know, really. They kind of like they shut me down,
Yeah. There are a lot of organizations that tick box in a lot of the things I talk about, but there are other organizations that do it really, really well. This is one I've got a friend, Hall. She's a CEO, proudly ADHD and she's proudly neurodiverse, and she calls EDI justice, equity, because it's Jedi, and she becomes So justice, Jedi is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Considers herself a Jedi warrior, which I think is a great way of describing it. But companies that get it right, there are companies doing well. And this is a really good example of the difference between the approach I take and the approach a lot of other people take. EDI, if you include people and make sure they belong, have a sense of their value, and they feel comfortable at work, then that's a good thing. But it doesn't stop there. Difference is valuable. The more opinions we can bring into the room when we're trying to solve a problem, the greater the chances of solving that problem effectively. So let's hear everybody's voices. How do we, and so there is added value to EDI. There is added value to difference. It's not just about making people feel like they belong. It's using their experiences to add value to the organization. That's the difference in my approach to some of the other approaches.
I think it also takes, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, I think it also takes emotional intelligence for particularly leaders to be able to say, not just tick the box about everybody's got an opinion and they can speak, but actually really listening and actually, and not just going, okay, it's just I cynically talk about this situation where somebody will come up for an idea and somebody else will diss it because they didn't think of it.
Yeah.
There's that kind of, that kind of attitude of, I'm the clever one here. I didn't think of that idea. So it's not going to work. And they'll diss it straight away without even thinking about it. And that's where I think it's where organizations, workplaces become stuck and where they begin to fail because they're not listening. Listening's the most important thing that we can do. Not listening to respond, but listening to understand.
Yeah. Again, words already included in the book there. And that's where psychological safety comes in. Psychological, I don't know whether you're aware, again, of Project Aristotle, which was a Google research thing. And over 2 years, they looked at the most successful teams. And they thought what they would find is the most successful teams are the ones with the best experience, with the strongest leaders. Yeah. And they didn't find that at all. They found 5 things. One was reliability. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Communication. I can't remember the other 2, but the most important one by far and above all of those was psychological safety. Feeling able to walk into a room and have a conversation, throw out an idea, not be judged for that idea, to not feel that there's any expectation on you in terms of having that idea fully formed, to be able to have these open conversations. Sometimes very difficult conversations, but having those conversations. And it's that strength of that communication and that ability to form a team that can do that was the signal of a high performing team. And that's why again, psychological safety is one of my things. And there are a whole load of stuff that can help a team develop in that space. But that comes with the EDI stuff. So, and the 2 are intimately linked. Yeah, it's great having feeling somebody can come to work and feel they belong, but within a psychologically safe space, they can come in, they can have the conversation, that they can make their contributions, they can try and fail, and failure is not seen as a bad thing. All those sorts of things. Yeah. So it allows us to get the value out of that difference.
It's interesting. It's called the Aristotle study, is it? I can look that up because I hadn't seen that before.
Aristotle. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I can look that up. I'll give you an example. I mean, since now I'm retired, I've got involved with some local things, and I'm part of. Funny enough, I'm part of the health and wellbeing group in my village that's attached to the parish council. And one of the 2 things we were looking at was just there's a little issue about like we've got a lot of retired people where I live, and hearing loss is quite an issue. And people then getting isolated because they can't be bothered to go in the shops because they can't hear what someone's saying to them. So we came up with this idea, a little project of we're going to do a little 2-minute informational film to put round to shops to get them to be sort of hearing awareness. So that was the idea of doing that, and it would be my responsibility to sort that out. And we got a sort of a month later meeting reviewing it, and I think for the first time in my life, I just said, actually, I'm a bit lost with this, folks. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with it. I feel a little bit out of my depth. So just being really open and honest. And these guys just said to Martin, don't worry about it too much. Listen, it's not an urgent thing. We'll work for it. We'll give you a bit of a helping hand. Let's get round you and help you do it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when I was employed, it would have been, he didn't dare say you couldn't manage something because you'd be a pariah. What's the matter with you? You stupid or something, or you've just been lazy, or are you not just, you can't be bothered,
Yeah.
and I had it.
And again, it's that, and this is where having that environment where you've got that social support and those relationships at work, which actually allow you to have those conversations. So not only EDI, not only psychological safety, but those relationships at work that allow that level of support. It all feeds into every item in the book.
Well, did you come across this concept of the management structure, which I think the old-fashioned traditional management structure in organisations, very much a pyramid, almost like in the services, where the higher you go, and the higher up somebody is, the further away they are from the front line. And there's something called came across called macro management, where there is almost like a level playing field, and you've got just one level up, or maybe 2 levels at the most, to a CEO. So the communication then is much more direct. It's a concept I'd not heard of before, but another retired gentleman that
different models work for different organizations. I mean, you couldn't have macro management in an army. Absolutely not.
Oh yeah, but that's armies. Yeah, armies made like that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know that particular model. To me, the most important thing is, when it comes to management, is that ability, and you said it earlier on, to listen, to learn. My mantra: ask your people, listen to your people, trust your people. Your best source of information is your people. How are you getting on? How's the organization getting on? Talk to your people, ask the questions, and trust they know what they're doing, because they're the ones, like you say, on the front line. So if you've got a leader can do that, whatever the structure is, yeah. Now I'm quite keen on the phrase HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion. So in any team, any organization, there's always one person in the room that's the highest paid person. And going back to what you were saying earlier on, because we're a hierarchical society, that person's opinion holds greater sway than anybody else's. So there is a responsibility on that person to make sure that they don't take advantage of that situation, and they actively seek everybody else's opinion and learn to listen. Yeah, and that's the key to that HIPPO. HIPPOs exist. They're real. The danger is when they become the focus. HIPPOs have a responsibility to make sure that everybody else is listened to.
There's another thing
oh,
another thing I came across, Glenn, funny enough, and that was when I was involved with EDI, is one of the directors talked to me about the concept of what's called the accidental manager.
yep.
Right, which is
They're all over the place.
The person that does really well on the front line, so they can become really good at their job, and they get promoted.
Yeah,
but they don't. When they get promoted, they don't get trained to manage teams and manage people, and they believe that, oh, right, now I'm the boss, I can tell everybody what to do, and that's where things break down. You come across with that?
Yeah. Excellent. I mean, yeah. What's the word I'm looking for? Accidental managers are quite lucrative in terms of training, because you're absolutely right. People are promoted. It's Pete's principle, is it? They're promoted one level above their capability, and yeah, that's absolutely true. I was initially promoted without that training. Fortunately, some good instincts in there, but then I was offered the training afterwards. So, but yeah, absolutely right. We need to recognize that people who are good at their jobs technically are not necessarily people. And when we're thinking about promotion, we need to identify the good people managers as well as the good technical managers. And maybe there's two different routes. There's a technical advancement and a people advancement, people related, a management advancement, if you like. So it's people can progress technically and become excellent in their field, technically, and promoted down that route. And they don't have to have people answerable to manage people. And there's others which I've always felt more comfortable about. Yeah, I manage people better than I do technical.
Yeah,
I wouldn't possibly job I've ever designed.
It's about making the best out of what our skills are, isn't it?
It's understanding your people. It's knowing the skills of your people. And that's, again, one of the tenets is you understand who your team are, understand where they want, what they want to do, what their ambitions are, and that's not just work-wise, that's life-wise as well. Yeah, where they're going, what they're capable of, and where their interests are, and all that sort of stuff. And develop them, or give them the opportunity to develop in that space. And that's, personal development, one of the 50. It all hangs together. This is why I think that people, I'm very proud of this book, because I think it answers a lot of the questions that people have around this stuff. I like to think I'm practical, and it's not preachy. It's not about shout. It's, this is why it's important. This is what you can do. These are sorts of things you can look at to improve. Yeah. And if you're getting better at it, this is what it's going to look like. And there's a couple of reflection prompts at the end of each chapter to just trigger a conversation in your own head.
Right. Do you find that when you're going out and presenting to organizations that they're wanting to sort of see some kind of tangible, okay, what's in it for us? What are the tangible results? It almost becomes like, numbers and noughts on a balance sheet. And how do you go about actually, getting through that difficulty? Because it is there, isn't it? Because
absolutely there. I mean, some of the early conversations you have with our clients, I try to avoid the scaremongering conversations. Yeah. The cost of poor mental health and well-being in your organization is over $2,000 per person in your organization per annum. Straight off the bottom line. Yeah, that's the average cost. 1,700 and something quid. And that's just the mental health side of things. That's not, the 1,700 quid that's often quoted is just the mental health. It doesn't include all the other stuff that comes with well-being. And that's a scary statistic. Yeah. So a lot of people lead with those sort of scary statistics. That I like to lead with the idea that if you look after your people will look after your business. And use the example of Barry Weinmuller, Bob Chapman took over the organization in the 80s. It was a $20 million a year organization. And he is he's a hero of mine. The way he treats his people as family. And now, a £200 million organization. He's just retired, actually, and built specifically on truly human focused leadership. How do we help our people thrive? Because if our people thrive, our business will thrive. And his primary business aim is the well-being. That's how he measures the success of his business, the positive impact he's having on his people, his suppliers, his customers. That's how he measures. And his success is a story in and of itself, really. So it's difficult to talk figures because how big people's potential is limited.
Yeah. And I guess, and also the whole point of it is it does take a bit of front end investment, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
Like all things, it's not, it might be short-term loss for long-term gain.
Well, I wouldn't see it as a short-term loss either. I mean, you train your managers to be listeners. You're going to get instant.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're dead right. It is. If you train them to listen, then they're going to listen, aren't they?
Exactly. There may be maybe, if you like, a methodology towards that, and I don't know what that is yet because people pick different things. So I've worked with one client, and we've just gone through the whole lot. Yeah, a series of management training sessions, and we've gone through. It's not yet. I haven't trained them through the book, but everything I've done relates back to the book, and they've really, really embraced it. And now we've gone from that initial tranche, and we're going to go to the next 400 managers, etc. Yeah, and they've bought into the story because they see that it has the potential. Other ones, we just do the occasional management training course because that's the place they're in at the moment, and that's fine. But once we get in there, we can start having these conversations.
One thing I think is really important here, Glenn, and I get this from you, is your utter enthusiasm for what you're doing. But it means so much. It's why people will respond to you and listen to you, because you talk about the subject with passion, and that's what captures people.
Yeah.
I'm picking up on it myself, and I'm feeling quite, I'm enthused myself for the future.
Yeah, you'll go for a run after this.
I used to. I'm not sure about that with my dicky ticker these days, but we'll probably go for a nice long walk, I expect. But no, it is. I think it's a really important thing to have that enthusiasm. So when you're doing, how do you go about promoting yourself? What sort of platforms do you use to? I know you talked about LinkedIn.
That's a good question. I think it's starting to. Well, we're in a situation at the moment now where early work was won by connection. So you become self-employed and you link to all the people you know, and you have conversation with them, and you win bits of work like that, and they build up, etc., etc. Then you hopefully one or two of those will turn into a bigger project. My biggest client was through just trying to think where I met this chap. I think he did a little bit of work for me when I was in Jacobs. And anyway, so we had a conversation, and he's doing a lot of work around the health and safety field. So he wanted somebody who was into well-being, mental health and well-being, so who could offer that service to clients. And it's through him that I've won the biggest tranche of work that I've got. What I find is bidding work doesn't play at the moment. So, although we're going to try that again soon, because I'm a founder of Ridgeway Workplace Mental Health, which is where I started, but now I am also a founder of Workplace Wellbeing Academy, and that's where the book comes in. And that we have a faculty, so we've got a faculty of people who are specialists in all sorts: neurodiversity, business development, personal development, all that sort of stuff, communications, psychological safety, etc. So we can go in and offer a much wider tranche of work. So we're going to start bidding work now with the actual academy. So hopefully we'll see that side build.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, most of what I've worked has been through personal relationships or friends of friends, etc., that sort of thing.
Yeah. So
But I
there's
think
that
we're coming to
network.
the end of that now. We've got to now look for the next batch of work, if you like.
So you make it use the first point of call then is the networking, isn't it?
Yeah,
Even if it's,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I'm a great
Yeah.
believer in that. You know, you go to a meeting or to a breakfast club or something, and you get talking to people and you tell people what you do, and then you hope that you build a relationship where something might come of it.
Yeah. I
That,
mean, again,
that's kind of where I'm
getting
at.
in front of people at conferences and talking to people like, keynote speaking. One of my early days, what I said at the beginning, that's the start of a story. And I've stood up in front of 150 people, told that story and the story of my recovery, et cetera, et cetera. So that was where my income was early doors. Yeah. In terms of impact speaking. I do less of that now because I'm
Hmm.
more around this is the solution. This is why it's important. This is how this is what we should be doing as organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more solutions orientated rather than story and recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Glenn, I'm going to ask you a question I ask a lot of my guests. As you know, my podcast is called Peace Unplugged.
Mhm.
So I like to ask individuals and to think about this take a moment or so to think about before you immediately answer. I'm going to ask you what brings you peace.
There's actually an easy one on that. And that is swimming.
Swimming.
Like I said, I experience recurrent depression. So I will go through, sometimes the depression is longer duration. Sometimes it's just, I have a particularly bad day, a couple of days, we all have days. But when I have a bad day, my head instantly, it's about how do I die? Yeah, that's where my head goes when I'm at a bad day. And I'm sorry, so I'm coming off about, this is actually just after we launched the book, I hit a depressive episode, which was probably the deepest it's been in many, many years. I was at my extreme lowest. The reason for that was I know I experienced depression. I know what I've got to do to keep myself safe. But with the publishing of the book and everything that was coming towards it, we had family visits, we had big birthdays, there was a whole bag of stuff going on. All my routines went out the window. And that included my swimming. And I go swimming 3 times a week. So I put myself in a very vulnerable place, exposed myself to a large room of people. No, I could see that coming. We were at Centre Parks for celebrating my wife's birthday, and we went to the sports hall, and it was just heaving, absolutely heaving. The rugby was on, and one of the things the hangover from my depression is I can't do crowds. The volume was huge, and it just knocked me sideways. It blew my mind. So I had to walk away. I went to bed, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Since then, I've spent time reestablish my routine. This week, it's the first time I've managed to get in a swimming pool twice this week. And what I find when I'm swimming is that I start off with all these thoughts in my head. Then it moves towards thinking just about the stroke and the number of lengths that I'm doing. And then it just stops. And it just becomes the swim. And I'm not thinking about anything. So I don't do mindfulness. I've tried it. I need distraction rather than mindfulness.
Uh-huh.
But if I would say anything that I call that my Zen moment, my mindful moment. But that time when in that swim, it might be only 10 minutes, might be 10, 15 minutes, but it's that time there where I just am. I'm in the water and it's all about just being in the water. And it's not about enjoying it either, really. It's just being, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So that's what brings me to this.
What I find really interesting about that, talking in terms of mindfulness, that mindfulness is not just about a meditation. We can do mindfulness in all sorts of different ways. It's actually about focus. So what you were describing there, the action of swimming, is that initially you have thoughts in your head, and then you're focusing on the stroke of the swimming. And by focusing on that, you're letting go of all the other, sort of the detritus that goes on in our head. I find really useful from, so I'm lucky that I live on the coast. So, and I associate with that with crowded rooms. There are certain circumstances with crowded rooms where I feel really comfortable. There are other times where I can't cope with big crowds. So I just go for a walk along the seafront because there's no people out at sea.
Yeah.
And I can just allow my emotions to just to sort of float out to sea and just go, actually, I can think, let thoughts process. But I also like to focus on what's around me, looking at the cliff face, walking past area. I wonder who walked along here 100 years ago. And just having a curiosity and a fascination. And I find that really helps me with my mental health because like yourself, I do get bouts of depression, not so much these days, but I know I'm vulnerable to it and it can happen. So
Yeah.
I manage it in that way. I think that it's the focus side of it that matters, because if we get
Yeah,
lots of rushing thoughts,
I don't disagree.
yeah,
I think, yeah. I mean, I was a bit facetious when it came to mindfulness. I did a 6-week mindfulness course, and I just couldn't. It wouldn't take for me. Yeah, it's it.
it's
If I've
different
learned
from people.
anything, it's different things for different people. It's find what works for you. Yeah, if that's knitting, if that's reading, if that's swimming, if it's mindfulness, whatever works. Yeah, find what works for you, and that's the most important thing. Because I couldn't get out of my own head during that sort of that 6 weeks. I just couldn't do it. However, like you say, that is that point in the swim. That's when it happens organically, naturally. I mean, I live 8 minutes walk from the beach, so I 100% agree with you around the beach. Although I am nowadays a bit more of a fair weather beach walker, so I haven't been down the beach for a while. But in fact, got down there yesterday for the first time in a while. Yeah, I agree with you. It's enjoying the process of what's around you, really.
That's great.
Get
This has
behind it. Yeah.
been a really interesting conversation, Glenn. I'm pleased that we've actually got together and met and had a chat about this. Um, final opportunity, fully go ahead and promote your book again. Say it again so people know.
Yeah, it's the Wellbeing Advantage: How Caring for Your People Can Power Your Business. Available on Amazon. I did find out that there are three books called Wellbeing Advantage. So look up Wellbeing Advantage, Glen Ridgeway on the screen, and you'll find it. It's £9.99 for the digital one, and $14.99 for $14.89 for the paper copy, and it's well worth it. I want it to be a user manual, so I want it to be dog-eared. I want people to read it. I want people to make notes in it. That's what it's designed for. There's a page at the end of each chapter, for you to take your own notes, etc. And just make it a dog-eared. I don't want it on people's shelves. I want them to use it, so that in a year's time it falls apart and they have to buy another one.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, well, I'm gonna let's finish up here. Thank you very much for being my guest. It's been a little while since I've had a guest on the podcast. I do like having guests on the podcast. I do like proper one-to-one discussions that are open-minded and people are able to speak freely. This has been great.
Well, I have to compliment you. I don't feel comfortable doing these things, but I have today. There you go.
Really,
That's a compliment
thank you.
to you. All right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Martin, for having me.
Okay.